Good evening, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for coming out to tonight's shir. Tonight's shir is being presented by the Chazaq organization and Shari Amuna. First off, we'd like to thank the sponsors for tonight's shir, Zahava and Rani Benjamini for their full shalema of Frida Bat Miriam, Devora Bat Rachel, Yehuda Lei Ben Adina Batya, Kayla Mariasha Bet Liba, Rafael Yaakov Issachar Natan, Hakohen Ben Alta Elka and Leila Nishmas, Shlomo Yisrael Ben Rabbi Yehuda Aryeh and Lior Ben Sarah, as well as for the Hatzlacha of Yaakov, Rabbi, and family, dedicated for the Hatzlacha, Yir Shemayim, and growth in Torah for the family. Just a little background about the Chazaq organization. The organization helps Jewish public school students transfer to yeshiva. In the last 2 years, Chazaq has helped over 560 kids transfer from public school to yeshiva. If anyone knows of a coworker, a friend, a family member who has kids in public school and would like to transfer to yeshiva, they should contact the Chazaq organization. Chazaq also organizes after-school programs for Jewish public school students in different communities in Queens and the Five Towns and different areas, as well as organizes different shiurim and events in different communities like tonight. If anyone would like to help organize a shir in their community, they should contact the Chazaq organization. Tonight we're honored to hear from Rabbi Tzion Shafier. He just came out with a book called 2 Worlds, 1 Chance. After the shir, at that table over there, we're going to give out a free book to every person that came to the shir. Rabbi Shafier is the founder of the Shmooze. He's spoken around the world and is a very famous speaker and author. It's an honor and privilege to call upon him.
Okay. First of all, I apologize for the time that I'm late. Yeah, I'm good. Okay, good. I also want to mention, so that's what I say. I was hoping on that. Yeah, I was banking on that. I also want to mention that Chazaq is doing phenomenal work. They're phenomenal work. I've said this many times. In the Ashkenazi community in the 20s and the 30s, a huge amount of Jews came over from Poland, from Russia. They came to America, and 1 generation later they were gone. There was nothing left. You're talking about total, complete assimilation. And Baruch Hashem that there are organizations like Chazaq who are doing everything they can to make sure that that doesn't happen. Because 560 kids who were in public school and now in yeshivas is a phenomenal number. And I don't have to tell you the difference between a kid today being in public school or being in yeshiva. It's a difference of whether they'll be Jewish, whether they'll marry Jewish, whether the kids will be. It's a tremendous opportunity. So please do whatever you can to help them. Okay. One of the greatest personalities in the time of the Gemara was Rabbi Elazar bar Padas. Rabbi Elazar bar Padas was known as Mara de Eretz Yisrael. He was the Torah teacher of the generation. To his address came all issues of the Klal Yisrael. To his home came all problems. But despite the fact that he was a tzaddik, despite the fact that he was a tremendous Eved Hashem, he lived a very difficult life. The Gemara's description, austere, bitter, difficult. He suffered poverty, illness, disease. To give you an example, a day in the life of Rabbi Elazar bar Padas. One day, Rabbi Elazar bar Padas went for a medical procedure, and when he came home, he found a bare cupboard. But a bare cupboard meant nothing to eat. He reaches back in the cupboard, he finds a clove of garlic, he bites into the clove of garlic, and he passes out from malnourishment. The word quickly spreads in Yerushalayim. The great Rabbi Elazar bar Padas is unconscious. Asi l'shuli bei Rabbanan, the rabbis come to visit. And when he's unconscious, this is what they see. He's lying there. First he begins crying. Then he begins laughing. Then a beam of light comes out of his head. Ki is a'er, when he awakes, they say, my hi, what's the meaning of this? The crying, the laughing, the beam of light. Says Rabbi Elazar bar Padas, at that moment, Yashav imi HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem himself came to visit. And I said to Hashem, Ad masai et sta'er b'hai alma. Hashem, when will my suffering end? And Hashem said to me, Elazar b'ni, Elazar my son, Nichalach ta'apech la'alma miresha. Is it good for you? Would you like me to begin the world again? Efshid the Messias b'shas the Mazoni. Maybe you'll be born into a time of sustenance. Amarti kule have efshir, you're going to turn back the world to its moment of creation, and maybe I'll be born into a time of sustenance. The Marsha, one of the commentaries, helps us by explaining that Hashem was offering Rabbi Elazar bar Badas something unusual. Do you feel your life is too difficult? Do you feel it's too hard? Do you want me to find you a different generation, put you into a different body, into a different life? Do you want to start again, and maybe I can find you a life that won't involve poverty? And apparently, Rabbi Elazar bar Badas wasn't sure where to go. His suffering was so acute that he didn't know if he had the strength to go on, and he said to Hashem, did I live half of my life? If I lived half of my life, I think I can continue. If not, I don't know. Hashem said, yes, you passed the halfway mark. Im kain lo ba'ina, if so, I don't wish for you to put me into a different life. Put me back into the life that I had been leading. At which point Hashem said to me, says Rabbi Elazar bar Badas, your world to come is in a state that's so wide and so vast that there are 13 rivers running through it. Again, the Marsha, one of the commentaries, helps us by explaining that Olam Haba, in the world to come, there are no estates, there are no rivers, there's no physicality. It's a mushal. Take a man in our world who's so wealthy that he owns tracts and tracts of land. He owns an entire state. And that's a parable for this man's world to come. At which point Rabbi Elazar bar Badas says, I said to Hashem, Kuli hai v'sulo. That's all, just 13 rivers? And Hashem said, if I'm going to give you more, what's going to be with your friends? Says Rabbi Elazar bar Badas, give me those portions of those who didn't earn it. Again, the Marsha explains to us what's going on. When Hashem creates each Jew, Hashem creates for that person a portion in the world to come. If they earn it, it's theirs. If not, it's left unclaimed. Says Rabbi Elazar bar Badas, don't take something from someone who deserves it. Those portions of those who didn't deserve it, who didn't earn it, give me those portions. At which point Hashem touched him on the forehead, said, Giri bach touche, as if you said well, and that beam of light came out of his head. And this is the Gemara. And I'd like to ask at least one obvious question on the Gemara and see if we can better understand what it's teaching us. And here's that question. We're dealing with a tzaddik, we're dealing with a Talmid Chacham, we're dealing with a man who lives his entire life to serve his Creator as he's supposed to. And he's suffering. But he's not suffering lightly. He's suffering in such a real way that the very first question he says to God is, when will my suffering end? So here's the question. If Hashem is more merciful, more kindly, more loving than any human being that we could ever imagine, why didn't Hashem just say, okay, Elazar, you're a good man. You suffered. It's been hard. I'll take over from here on in. But that's not what Hashem said. Hashem said, do you want me to turn back the world to its moment of creation? Maybe you'll be born into a time when there'll be parnasa. If I were Rabbi Elazar bar Badas, I would say, don't turn back the world to its moment of creation. How about a cup of coffee and a tuna fish sandwich? He's not asking for luxuries. He's asking for basics. Why not Hashem just say, okay, I'll give it to you? And I'd like to see if we could understand what the Gemara is sharing with us and understand a different perspective. And to do that, I'd like to share with you a mashal, a parable. Imagine the following. Imagine a very famous actor gets a call from his agent, and the call sounds something like this. Hey, listen, Jack, we got this great script. It's a guaranteed Oscar. I'm going to send it by. We're going to do it. The next day, the actor reads through the script. His agent calls him. Jack, we're going to do it, guy, right? Nope, I'm not doing it. Jack, well, what is it? The other actors, we'll change him out. I'm not doing it. Is it the cash? We'll get more cash, guy. I'm not doing it. But Jack, why not? Why not? Why not the part? The part you have me playing is an idiot. He's a down and out. Yeah, but Jack, that's just the part. We're going to do it, guy, right? I can't stand the whole world seeing me as a luckless idiot. He hangs up the phone. Now, that conversation never happened. Because anyone going to the theater, as well as any actor on the stage, understands that the actor has a role to play. The actor has a part to play, and the actor is judged on one criteria. How well did you play your part? If your part to play is the most successful human being in the world, but you played your part poorly, the critics will rip you to shreds. If your part to play is an idiot savant, but you played the part well, you win accolades, you win awards, the actor is given a script, and the actor is judged on one criteria. How well did you play your part? And I believe that that is a very apt mashal for life. Before we were born, Hashem gave each of us a very exact amount of talents, abilities. Hashem chose a given generation. Hashem gave us an exact amount of intelligence and said, this is your life. I want you to become the great human being you can become. But each of us were given vastly different talents, abilities, strengths, and weaknesses. And each of us were given a part to play. And when we're done our job here, they don't ask me how close I was to you. They don't ask me how good I was compared to you. They ask me the most demanding, exacting question: how much of me did I become? You see, each of us were given different strengths, different talents, different abilities, and each of us are asked one single question: how much of you did you become? And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to realize that different people are given vastly different life settings, vastly different abilities, and all of it doesn't matter, because they're but stage settings, we are but actors on the stage, and when we've done our job here, they ask one simple question: how much of you did you become? But I'm not compared to you, you're not compared to him, none of us are compared to tzaddikim who lived hundreds of years ago. Each of us are compared to that standard of me. How much of me did I become? 80%, 40%, 20%. They say in the name of the Vilna Gaon that the most painful moment in a person's life is not that fatal car crash, not even when you recognize that the Tzala guys are there for you, and not even when they pull that sheet over your head. They say in the name of the Gra that it's not even when you're at your funeral, and not even when you hear them say those words about you. It's when they put you in the ground and they cover your body with a layer of dirt and you separate. And I stand in front of the Beis Din Shel Mala, I stand in front of the Heavenly Tribunal, and they hold up this picture of this great man, this tzaddik, this Talmid Chacham. And they say to me, why didn't you become that? Me, little me. You want me to be that great person, that tzaddik? What do you want from me? And they say in the name of the Gra, the most painful words a human being will ever hear are the words, that is you. That is you had you become what you were destined to be. That is you had you actualized your potential. That is you had you lived up to what you could have been. But you see, folks, the picture is a picture of me. I'm not asked to be you, and you're not asked to be him. None of us are compared to any other human being. I'm compared to the most exacting, demanding standard, the standard of me. And when you understand that, you begin to understand that people were given vastly different lives. If you look around this room, you'll see there's tremendous differences in intelligence, in personality, in temperament, in abilities. No one I know woke up in the morning and said, Hashem, I think you should create me with 180 IQ. Brilliant, sharp. No, Hashem, give me an 80 IQ, kind of daft, kind of slow. Hashem, make me 6'2", big and strong. Nah, Hashem, make me 4'6", kind of scrunched over and scrawny. We don't get to choose our physical settings. And as we don't get to choose our physical settings nor our intelligence, much of our personality we don't get to choose either. Daniel Goleman in his book Emotional Intelligence writes about the fact that there are studies that they do today that at 22 months of age they can determine the nature of the child. Bold or shy, extroverted or introverted. And because hardwired at birth is much of the temperament, the nature, the talents of the person. Can you go further? Yes, within whatever abilities you have, you can go as far as you can. But if you look around, you'll quickly see that there are vast differences amongst people. Some people are gifted and some people aren't. Some people are brilliant and some people are just not. And even if you tell me that intelligence is not the end-all and be-all, you ever notice that some people are socially gifted? They just know the right thing to say to each person in each situation. And some people are social klutzes. They say the dumbest things all the time. Listen, I know two brothers. Two brothers live in Muncie. One brother, everything he touches turns to gold. Financially very, very successful. Beautiful marriage. Each of his children, one is more unique than the other. And he has a brother. The other brother, everything he touches turns to mud. can't earn a living, his shalom bayis, his marriage is on the rocks, his kids, excuse my expression, one's a bigger misery than the other. But here's the point. Two brothers born to the same parents, brought up in the same home, went to the same yeshivas, living vastly different lives. And don't tell me one's trying and the other one isn't. They're both trying, but some people are given vast amounts of talent, some people aren't, and all of it doesn't matter. When I'm done my job here, they don't ask me how much money I had, they don't ask me how handsome I was, they don't ask me how much charisma I had, they ask me one single question. This was your role to play, how much of you did you become? And I'll share with you something interesting. There is what I call the mantra of the high school girl. I have kind of her 4 daughters, they're all Baruch Hashem past the stage. But anyone know what the mantra of the high school girl is? You know, the mantra is a line you say over and over and over, repeating. So if you don't know the mantra of the high school girl, I'll tell you what it is. The line that the high school girl will say over and over and over is, it's not fair. She has so much good clothing, and she's so pretty, and she has so many good friends, and her parents treat her so nicely. It's just not fair. And would you like to know that she's 100% correct? If you look around any class, you'll see there are tremendous differences. If you have 25 children in that classroom, they're different from left to right, center, and there's so many differences in abilities and talents. And if you believe that Hashem put us on a planet for our station here, and if you believe that this is the end-all and be-all, then you should ask that it sure does seem unfair. But once you understand that we're here for a few short years, we're given a mission, we're given a plan and a purpose, then you begin to understand that all of it is irrelevant. These are all state settings, these are all props. The only question they ask is, how much of you did you become? How much of your strengths did you use? And I have a mashal that I think well defines this. There was a book written many years ago. The story was about a football player who was getting in shape for the Super Bowl Sunday. And to get in shape, he's riding his bike on a country road. It's a secular book. In any case, it was a novel. And according to the book, the story goes like this. The angel of death was new on the job that day. The angel of death sees the football player going this way into the tunnel. The angel of death sees a car going the other way. The angel of death says, why wait for the blood, the mess? Instead of waiting for the actual collision, the angel of death takes the football player out of his body. They bury the football player. Everything is fine and well. Except one problem. The angel of death made a mistake. Any normal person would have hit the car, deserves to be in heaven, deserves to be dead. But this man was an athlete with keen instincts. The last moment he would have veered off, would not have hit the car. He deserves to be alive. The problem is his body's in the ground. What do they do now? A whole tumult. They decide to do the only thing they can do, find someone whose time, in fact, is up, and then put the football player back into the body of that person. So the cute part of the story is that the football player opens his eyes, looks around this mansion, sees the butlers and the maids, and then feels the flab when he realizes he's now occupying the body of this rich tycoon. So the cute part is where he has the butlers and the maids on the front lawn running football drills as he tries to get his arm in shape for the Super Bowl Sunday 3 weeks forward. But there is a punchline here. That exact experience happened to every one of us. I am the guy inside. Hashem took me from under the kisei kavod and said, this is the generation into which you shall be born. This is the family, in this birth order, in this situation, because this is the ideal stage setting for you, custom designed, handcrafted to allow you to become the great person you can be. And I believe that's the answer to Rabbi Elazar bar Padas. You see, great wealth is a life test. When you wake up in the morning and you're rich, but I mean really, really rich, there's a sense of power, independence. I don't need anybody. I don't need my kids. I don't need my wife. I don't need God. I can buy and sell the world. That's a life test. When you feel that sense of power, what you do with that moment is a major test. And as great wealth is a life test, so too is poverty. When you're so poor that you don't know how you're going to pay your bills, and over you hear the calls and the creditor and the word foreclosure keeps coming up and over, and finally you scrape together just enough money to make that mortgage payment. and that night you hit a parked car. You look left, you look right, and no one saw. Do you leave your phone number or do you not? As great wealth is a life test, so too is poverty. And I believe that's exactly what Hashem was saying to Rabbi Elazar bar Padas. It's not that I ran out of cash in your generation. It's not that I'm short on money. This generation, this life setting has been handcrafted, custom designed for you, perfectly made. Says Hashem to Rabbi Elazar bar Padas, do you want me to find you another generation? Do you want me to put you into a different life that might allow you to become the great person you can become? Efsha, says Hashem. Why? It's possible, but maybe not, because this one has been handcrafted, designed for you, to challenge you, to allow you to become the great person you can become. And I believe that's what the Gemara is sharing with us. This understanding that Hashem creates for each person the ideal stage setting. I didn't get to choose it. I didn't choose this body. I didn't choose this temperament. I didn't choose this level of intelligence. But Hashem put me into this world, put me into this generation, into exactly the stage setting, and said, go out there, ford those streams, climb those mountains. And when I'm done, the only question they ask me is, how much of me did I become? What did I do with it? And I believe that this understanding helps us understand life. And while this understanding helps us understand life, I believe that there's one mashal that clearly defines. If you want to understand life in a very, very clear way, I want you to imagine the following. Imagine that you're invited to a exclusive health club. You've never been there before, but you know the basic layout. On the right side is the gym, on the left side is the spa. You know the gym has all the equipment you need to work out, the Nautilus, the weight machines. Left side is the spa, is the steam room, the sauna, everything you need to just relax. Anyway, you decide it's been a very stressful week, you're heading right to the spa. But because you've never been there before, instead of turning left, you turn right, and you find yourself in this room, and all this equipment, and all these red-faced people grunting and sweating. And you say the words, whoever designed this spa did a terrible job. Mesilas Yesharim explains that when Hashem created the world, Hashem created two worlds. There's this world and the world to come, each with its plan, each with its purpose. This world is the gym. We're put into this world to grow, to accomplish, to be challenged. When I'm done my job here, I go to the world to come, that's the spa. Whatever I accomplished here is what I enjoy there. But two worlds, each with their plan, each with their purpose. When you understand that, you understand life. If you don't understand that, then there's very little under the sun you understand. And I'll share with you what I mean. Anyone here ever suffer a headache? Okay, how about a migraine, anyone? Migraine? How about a little arthritis? I walked a man up 3 steps on Yom Kippur. I helped him up. I think he suffered more pain in those 3 steps than I suffered my entire year. See, here's the question. Why does Hashem design pain? Why does Hashem make pain? But here's the point. When you smash your elbow, it hurts, but that's a very different feeling than when you smash a shin. A stomach ache hurts, but that's very different than a toothache. An abrasion hurts, but that's very different than a burn. You could write poetry about the different flavors and textures and nuances of pain. Why do it? What good does it do anyone? If Hashem is loving, kindly giving, why does Hashem create such a complex pain delivery system? Also, I could say, ouch, and suffer. And if you believe that we are like Elsie the cow, you see, when Elsie the cow dies, her nefesh goes, just evaporates. If you believe that when you hit the grave, it's black and it's done and it's over, then that question is profound. But it's not just that question, it's suffering, it's illness, disease, pain. A stupefying immune system in man, so complex, with clearly designed holes in it, and diseases that seem to be handcrafted to penetrate those very openings in the immune system. Why does Hashem do it? And if you believe that life ends in the grave, you will find no answer to these questions. Once you understand that this is the gym, we're put here to grow, to be challenged, there'll be many, many situations that you will be challenged with in life that you will have a choice to make. You either transcend, you rise above it, or you crumble, but choose you must. Once you understand life, once you understand there's a gym and a spot, thank you. then you understand fundamentally much of life. You may not know the answer to every individual situation, but you understand I'm here for a few short years, many, many challenges. What I make myself into is what I'll be for eternity. Then you understand life. And while this may seem obvious, I don't think it's obvious at all. I get a chance to speak in different communities, and there's a shmooze I no longer say. It's called the death shmooze, shmooze number 23. I was speaking in an out-of-town community, and I said this shmooze. You go on the site, theshmooze.com or the shmooze app, you could see it. But I don't say the shmooze anymore because of the reaction I got at this audience. I was speaking, I did about 40 minutes about what it's like after we die, what it's like, etc. And afterwards, many, many people had questions, many people had comments. And I noticed out of the corner of my eye an older couple kind of hovering on the side. When I was finished, everyone came over asking. Finally, the older couple came by, and the woman came by first, and she said, "Oh, Rabbi, I love the lecture." "Oh, thank you very much." Husband followed suit. "Rabbi, I love the lecture, but..." Now, I've been around the block often enough to know that when you hear the words, "Rabbi, I love the lecture, but..." this is going somewhere. So I waited to see where this was going. "Rabbi, I love the lecture, but according to what you've just said, I've wasted my entire life." Now, when you're on this side of the stender, and an 80-year-old man is on the other side saying, according to what you've just said, he's wasted his entire life, and you know that he might be correct, it's a very uncomfortable position to be in, so I stopped saying that shmooze in public. However, I want to share with you some of the highlights just so you understand where this man was coming from. Rabbi Salanta explains that we make a fundamental mistake about death. Ask someone, what's death like? "Oh, I don't know, blackness, like you go to sleep, at rest." "He's at rest, rest in peace. Harvey was a good man, he's in his final resting place." And says Rabbi Salanta, there's no secrets, it's not difficult to understand. In fact, it's very simple. If you want to understand death, imagine the following. Imagine I walk into the room and I take off my coat, I hang my coat off, I walk into the room, and says Rabbi Salanta, that is death. This part is the body, this part is the coat's put in the ground, and I separate. But you see, it's me. It's not my distant cousin, not my alter ego, not some other part of me, it's me. With my thoughts and my memories, I, the one who occupy the body, leave. Now this concept is very difficult for us to understand, so I'll give you a mushal so you make it a little bit more clear. First, a little bit of social etiquette. Anyone very familiar with the laws of social behavior? Here's a question. From the time you get a text, how much time do you have to respond before you're considered rude? Anyone know the exact amount of time? Well, I don't know the exact amount of time either, but it's a small sliver. "What do you mean you're in the shower? I don't care. I texted you over 10 seconds ago. Why didn't you..." Okay. I don't know exactly how much time, but you're given a very, very short amount of time before you're considered rude. Okay. Imagine the following. Imagine you have a son who you brought up very well, and he's very, very polite. He just got his license, and he's not the best driver in the world, but he is very polite. Okay. Anyway, he gets behind the wheel of the car, and you're sitting next to him, and he's driving. And you do notice that the speedometer is going from 65 to 70, 75, 80. You don't want to say anything, but this is like getting a little scary over here. And all of a sudden, he gets a text. Now, I did mention he's not the best driver in the world, but he is very polite. So, of course, he texts back and forth, and pow! Crash. Lights out. You wake up 3 days later in a hospital bed. You look up, the doctor looks down and says, "Sorry to be the one to tell you this, but you'll never move another muscle in your body again." And you realize, hey, I can't move my arms. Hey, I can't move my legs, my head, my chest. Help, help, I'm stuck in here. Imagine it's you in the hospital bed, locked in. And imagine for a moment that your friends come to visit, and your friends say those things that friends say when they don't know what to say. "Oh, you look terrible. Thanks a lot. I'm better. I'm going to be stuck in here. Can tell me how bad I look?" Here's the question. You, in that hospital bed, can't move your arms, can't move your legs, can't move your head, your chest. Are you alive? Are you alive? So if you're not sure whether you're alive or not, I'll share with you an interesting observation. That exact experience happened to a man, the editor of Elle magazine in Paris. He woke up in the hospital, locked in. In fact, that's the name of the syndrome, locked in syndrome. He couldn't move a muscle in his body, not his arms, not his head, not his legs, not his chest. And he wrote a book. The book is called The Butterfly and the Diving Bell. Now, interestingly enough, he was able to move one muscle. He was able to blink his left eye, and through that, a speech pathologist devised a method for him to communicate. She would put her finger down a card with the alphabet on it. When she got to a letter that he wanted a signal, he would blink his eye. Hence, he was able to communicate. Now, that book describes the weeks, the months that he lived in that hospital. He describes the nurses. Some were so kind and so sweet. Some were, when he called Attila the Hun. So here's the question. That man in that body, locked in, was he alive? So if you're not sure whether he was alive or not, I'll share with you that observation. And that is that that book that became a bestseller in France, translated into English, later made into a movie, was written by that man. You see, in the mornings, he would compose the sentences and the paragraphs in his mind. In the afternoon, his secretary would stand at the foot of his bed, taking dictation letter by painstaking letter, because he died in that state. And if you want to read a testament of a man being vibrantly alive while his body is effectively dead, read the book, The Butterfly and the Diving Bell. But you see, that's the point. I'm the guy inside. I'm the one in here. The body is the shell. The body's put in the ground. And when I'm done, I separate. And when I separate, it's me. I'm not asleep. I'm not my distant cousin, not my alter ego, not my neshama. It's me with all of my thoughts, all of my memories. And that understanding should change the way you think about life, because every action that I engage in shapes me, molds me, makes me into a different person. When I said this over to that audience, this 80-year-old gentleman said, "Rabbi, according to what you've just said, I've wasted my entire life." And I asked him what he meant. And he said, "Well, I made a lot of money. That's what I focused on since I'm a little kid. I've done very well. But this idea that every action, every thought, every conversation with another human being shapes me into who I'll be, that forever I am what I make myself, I never thought about that. And according to what you're saying, I wasted my entire life." Now, folks, here's the punchline. The man was davening in an Orthodox shul. He put on tefillin every day. He kept Shabbos, he kept kosher. He was a functional, operating religious person. But this thought, why did Hashem create me? What's life about? What am I? Never seemed to have crossed his conscious mind. Isn't it a little unusual? I mean, imagine the following. Imagine this man woke up at 60. Imagine he woke up at 40 and said, "Wait a minute, I get it. Hashem made the whole world. Hashem made the sun and the moon and the stars. I get it. Hashem made everything. And wait a minute, Hashem made me. Yeah, Hashem made me. Maybe Hashem had a purpose. Maybe there's a reason why Hashem put me into. Yeah, maybe there's a reason." Could you imagine had this man woken up at 40 and asked himself, why did Hashem create me? What am I doing here? Could you imagine the different life choices he would have made? If you wake up at 80, it's a little late in the game. If you wake up at 40, it's a lot better, and certainly a lot better if you wake up at 20. But here's the point. Hashem put us into the world, gave us tremendous potential, gave us a Torah as the system, as the guidebook to grow, to become what you can be. And when we're done our job here, they don't ask us how rich we were. They don't ask us how pretty we were. They don't ask us how clever we were. They ask one thing. This is the great person you could have been. Did you follow the Torah? Did you grow? Did you accomplish? Did you become what you were put on the planet to be? But you see, folks, it's me. It's not my distant cousin, not my alter ego. My body's put in the ground. I separate, and it's me who's there. And if you'd like to understand life on a very deep and fundamental level, I think you just have to understand that one concept, that I am the guy inside. I think what this Gemara shares with us is a tremendous, tremendous yesod. And that is that Hashem was saying to Rabbi Bar Padas, it's not by accident that you put into this generation. It's not by accident that you're born into poverty. Handcrafted, custom designed for you. This is the ideal stage setting for you. And much like that football player who finds himself in the body of the tycoon, Hashem puts each of us into a life that ideally suits us. I didn't get to choose my level of intelligence. I didn't get to choose my temperament. I didn't get to choose much of my life. But what I do with it, I sure do get to choose. And who I become forever is based on my choices. But again, my body's put in the ground, I separate, and forever I am what I made myself into. And this idea used to be very difficult to relate to, very difficult to understand. The idea that I live on after my body, the idea that I'm not a body, it used to be a very difficult concept, but I believe in our day and age it's very, very easy to understand. You see, in 1979, Raymond Moody wrote a book. The book is called Life After Life. Raymond Moody was a physician in a hospital, an emergency room, and he dealt with many, many patients who were clinically dead. They died. No respiration, no heart rate. And if within 4 to 6 minutes of cardiac arrest or stop of respiration, if they were revived, he found that about 35% had what he called a near-death experience. He invented that word. No one ever had heard of it before. But basically he described that patients would come back when they were resuscitated, and they would describe things that they couldn't have possibly seen because they were unconscious. They knew things that they couldn't possibly know because they weren't there. And he says they all had this eerie commonality. They described kind of popping out of the body, kind of hovering over the ceiling and kind of watching. When he wrote this book, he chronicled hundreds of cases of near-death experiences. And when he published it, it created a tremendous stir in the scientific community because he was a physician, it was scientifically based, but it can't be. What do you mean I live on after I'm dead? The body's dead, I'm dead. What do you mean live on? Since that time, there have been thousands upon thousands of near-death experiences that have been chronicled, have been corroborated, and it's become an accepted medical fact. We don't understand it, we don't know what it means, but somehow something lives on after death. Okay. In any case, Lancet magazine is a prestigious British medical journal, and they did a summary survey of all the different surveys of studies of near-death experiences. And they were trying to sort of bring together all the wisdom that man has discovered about near-death experience. Now, I'm not going to share with you, I'm not going to bore you with the details of the study, but I want to share with you one story that they bring in this magazine, Lancet magazine. Ladies, just a little warning ahead of time, there's a little bit of blood and gore in the story, but it's well worth hearing. In any case, the story that they brought down goes as follows. A 36-year-old woman was brought into the hospital with an aneurysm in her brain. It was bleeding in the brain. Now, normally, the medical procedure calls for cauterizing the area, meaning they'll put a hot probe and sear the tissue, stop the bleeding. The problem was that the bleeding was so deep in her brain that if they went in to cauterize it, they would cause so much residual bleeding that she would bleed to death. The surgeon said to her, "Madam, there's nothing we can do for you. If I go in, I'll kill you. I can't do it." The head surgeon was effectively sending her home to die. In any case, on that team was another surgeon who asked to meet with her, and he said as follows. He said, "I've been thinking about your case. I've studied very carefully. It's theoretical, but I believe we might be able to save your life. If we drain all of the blood from your head, and the surgeon goes in and quickly cauterizes the area, you can't bleed because there'll be no blood in your head. In theory, if he works quickly enough, I believe we can save your life." She consulted with other medical professionals. She consulted with the clergy. There was no alternative. She agreed to undergo the procedure. However, this was the problem. There could be no bleeding whatsoever. They put her under anesthetic, put tape over her eyes, probes in her ears, put her body into a bath of ice. They had to get her core temperature as low as they could and still hopefully revive her. When she was fully under and blue in the face, they drained all the blood from her head. The surgeon opened the scalp, found the area, cauterized it, closed it back up. They took her out of the body out of the bath of ice, put the blood back in, and miraculously she survives. A few hours after the operation, the surgeon walks into the room where she's recovering, and she begins laughing. Doctor, I must share with you, when you were operating on me, I had this strangest hallucination. I dreamt that I popped out of my body. I popped out of my body and I was hovering in the ceiling, kind of looking down at you. The surgeon opened his ears very carefully to listen. She said, and then the strangest thing happened. You took out this electric toothbrush and you tried to put it into a vein in my thigh, but it didn't fit. You said it doesn't fit, so the nurse next to you said, try again. You tried again, and you said, it doesn't fit. She said, try another time. You tried another time, and it fit. Doctor, isn't that funny? The doctor didn't laugh. The doctor turned white. Because part of the procedure involved taking a medical instrument that from a distance could look like a electric toothbrush. He needed to put it into a vein in her thigh, but the vein was occluded. It was too small. He couldn't get it in. He tried, he said it doesn't fit. The surgical nurse next to him said, try again. He tried a second time. He said it doesn't fit. The nurse said, try another time. He tried another time and it fit. But that conversation between doctor and nurse was held while the woman's body was in a bath of ice. She was blue in the face. You could have screamed at her. You could have yelled at her. She wasn't there. And when you read about thousands of people who all describe the same sort of reality, that the body is dead, but they saw, they remember, they experienced things, you begin to get it. I'm not the body. I'm the guy inside, put into this world for a few short years to grow and accomplish, and then asked one question, how much of me did I become? I believe this Gemara is sharing with us a fundamental concept. Hashem said to Rabbi Bar Padas, it's not by accident you were born into this generation. Handcrafted exactly for you. This is the stage setting that will allow you to become the great person. Some stage settings involve wealth, some poverty, some health, and some different situations. But each one is but a stage setting because we're but actors on the stage. And when we've done our job, they don't ask us anything other than how much of me did I become. And I believe this concept is fundamental to understanding life. And I want to close with one last thought. When the rabbis walked into the room and they saw Rabbi Bar Padas unconscious, there were three things that happened. First he began crying, then he began laughing, then a beam of light came out of his head. Now, why he laughed, I understand. If you were just told that your world to come is in a state that's so wide and so vast that there are 13 rivers running through it, you'd also find it very entertaining. The beam of light, I also understand. When Hashem said you're going to have such a huge Olam Haba, the 13 rivers running through it, and he said, I could do more. I could accomplish even more. Hashem said, Giri bach touche. Greed is ugly. Ambition is great. Hashem did not take any human being from under the throne of glory, put us into this world for whatever. And as great as Rabbi Bar Padas was, there was more to accomplish, more to grow. And Hashem said, Giri bach touche, as if you've done well. He touched him on the forehead. The beam of light came out because if it could be, Hashem was entertained by it. So the laughing I understand, the beam of light I understand, but why did Rabbi Bar Padas cry? So if you look in Rashi on that Gemara, Rashi says why Rabbi Bar Padas cried. Do you remember the very first question he asked Hashem? When will my suffering end? And Hashem said, you want me to put you into another life? And he didn't know if he had the strength. He said, did I live half of my life? When Hashem said, yes, half of your life is gone, he began crying, woo, half of my life gone. He starts crying. That Rashi is very difficult to understand. Why? This man is living in Gehenna. Poverty, illness, disease, the Gemara's description of his life is austere and difficult. And he's halfway through it. He should be dancing a jig. He should be overjoyed. Baruch Hashem, half of my life gone. This thing called Gehenna gone. It's like imagine a man running a marathon. And at mile 20, the judge says to him, you're setting a world-class record, just keep it up. Ay, 20 miles gone. Woo. Why would Rabbi Bar Padas cry because half his life is gone? He should be overjoyed. And I believe the answer to this question is that Rabbi Bar Padas understood life. You see, when he opened his eyes in the morning, there was a love of life. 24 hours to change myself, change the people I live amongst, change the very generation I live in. Let's go. Because he understood life. There was such a love of life that when Hashem said to him, half of your life is gone, that was the worst news available. And my friends, if you want to learn some Musar, this is the Musar lesson. The next time one of your friends kvetch, my life is so difficult, my kids and my parnasa and everything, I guarantee their suffering didn't come within miles of Rabbi Bar Padas' suffering. Disease, illness, austere, bitter life. Despite that, he loved life. He had such a love of life that when Hashem said half of your life is gone, it was the worst news imaginable because he understood life. When you understand that we're here to grow, and we're here to accomplish, there's a tremendous love of life. There'll be rough moments. Yeah, it's not all going to be a walk in the park, but there's such a simcha zachayim, and I believe that's exactly what the Gemara is sharing with us. I want to thank Chazaq, and I want to wish them tremendous atzlacha and in their work. Please take a copy of the book, Two Worlds, One Chance. It's available here. It is sponsored by Chazaq. And all the shmuzim are available on the shmuz.com or the shmuz app. And again, please avail yourself of the book. Thank you very much. By the way, anyone have questions, observations, thoughts? Anything?
Why all the pain? Talking about the pain. Why Kadosh Baruch Hu made pain here? Why all this pain?
Okay, pain does something incredible. Pain forces a person to think differently, act differently. It makes you sober. It's not pleasant, but it's a very sobering experience. Sometimes it's machaper, but more than anything, going through difficult troubles changes your perspective and you become a different person. What you do with that is, many people crumble, but people rise above it, become different, they understand life differently, and they become different human beings. And they wouldn't have been the same had they not gone through it. All right. Thoughts, observations, questions, anything on this subject or any other?
We're going to do out of it after that.
That's not a question. That was a statement. Yeah. Question, yeah.
On your original mushal, I understand the concept of the actor and the roles we play, but an actor, even if he's acting a role where he's sick or impoverished, he's not really suffering. Rabbi Lazar was really suffering. You know what I mean? The mushal isn't exact.
The mushal means to bring out this point that I was given a stage setting, and I'm not judged by the stage setting. Let's say I'm the richest guy in New York, and I'm the most brilliant person, and that's the role. The question is, what did I do with that? What did I accomplish? I'm not judged by the role I have to play. I'm judged by what did I do with that role. Meaning, so many times we judge people. Oh, he's smart, or he is very wealthy, or he's even if a person's Talmid Chacham, that doesn't tell me what he's doing. Maybe he had the potential to be twice as big as he is. Maybe he's only 30% of what he could have been. So we judge people on the externals, and we assume that that's who they are. The externals are the stage setting, and we're judged by what we do with what we're given. You know what I'm saying? That was the point of the mashal to. So
the suffering that he had was needed. He couldn't have achieved his potential
right without poverty,
without his circumstances.
Right, handcrafted for him, not always comfortable, but allowing him to become the great person that he could become. And he wouldn't have been it without it.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So then it raises I think it's a classic question. What's the point of davening to change your situation? If God said, this is the perfect situation, then what am I davening for?
Right. It's a very good question. Okay, so many Rishonim learn that davening is akin to any hishtadlus that you do. Let's say a person says, you know what, Hashem determines how much money I am to make, so I'm not going to get a job. What's going to happen? So watch this. Here, I'll make it even more clear. Imagine it's Yom Kippur. I'm shuckling away. It's Rosh Hashanah. It's a little clearer. My talent's over my head. I'm shuckling away, and I hear a boss call, Shafer, what? Shafer, what? I was sent from Shema. Yeah, what? I was sent to tell you this year you make $1 million. Whoa, $1 million. I leave the base medrash, happy as a lark. Quit my day job. I don't do a thing. What do you think is going to happen that year? I heard the boss call, I'm going to make $1 million. But I quit my day job. I don't even look in the papers. I don't do anything. I just sit down. What do you think is going to happen? I'll tell you what's going to happen. I'm going to go hungry that year. Why? Because when Hashem decrees I'm to make so much money, Hashem doesn't handcuff a person to any fate. That's what's available. That's what's accessible. But you got to do your part. To earn a living, you got to get a job. To get married, you have to go out. If you decide, I want to smoke 2 packs of cigarettes a day and eat 50 ounces steak, and you weigh 400 pounds and you're 35, don't complain to God when you have a heart attack. God, Hashem, why me? I'm only 35. Why you? Because look at you. In other words, meaning before we were born, Hashem determines a certain appropriate, proper life for us, but we got to do our part. To do our part, you got to do what you're supposed to do. Part of that is davening. So, if in fact I'm supposed to suffer this situation, and it really is slated to be, my davening isn't going to change it, but it might just be that I have to do the shtadlus, and the shtadlus will get me out of it. Just like I might just have to get a job to earn a living, so too, a big part of the shtadlus is davening.
I want to make sure I understand that. So, if I'm hearing this right, it's that I may be suffering now, but that's not actually supposed to be my ideal state. It's really more of a motivator for me to daven so I can affect myself and get to my ideal state. Is that what you're really...
Close to that. I mean, I would say this. There are life settings. There are some people who are born to poverty, some people to wealth, some people to health, some people opposite. And then there are things that we go through in life. The things that we go through have many different reasons why. However, oftentimes, tefillah can change it. Whatever the reason that I'm going through this now, maybe it's a punishment, maybe it's to help me wake up, I don't know why. There could be a lot of different reasons. But davening is a good hishtadlus, the best hishtadlus, to get me, to allow Hashem to have mercy on me and hopefully extricate me from this situation. Is that clear? Clear as mud. Clear as mud. Clear as mud. Tefillah changed, right? But it's a shtadlus, much like going to work, much like any shtadlus that we do, right? Right.
I guess just to really one last thing. So that great man in the Gemara who was as poor as poor as poor, should he have been davening not to be poor? I mean, that's that's the question.
I assume he was. Now, that doesn't mean that it's going to change it. If it's your life setting, it's not going to change it. But he should, because who knows? And you don't know, you know. And there were great people, you know, who were poor. It's again, the different life settings that different people were given. And that, you know, tefillah won't change if it's really what you need. But again, it's usually circumstances, and those usually do change. Okay, any last, yeah.
Why did he ask if, like, where I'm holding in my life? Meaning, if Hashem told him that you only live 20% of his life, would he have then said, okay, then I want to...
So it was an emotional problem, meaning his life was so difficult, it was such a heavy burden, that he didn't know if he had the strength to continue. When Hashem said, yes, you're halfway, all right, if I got past halfway, I have the strength to continue. But he didn't know, meaning it wasn't like lightly suffering. His pain was so acute, his life was so difficult, that he didn't know if he had the strength to continue. Hashem said, you passed the halfway mark, okay, then if I got this far, I think I can continue. But the point is, it wasn't necessarily an easy life.
And also,
Yeah. But despite that, he was happy. He loved life. Pain and tremendous joy in the same human being. How could that be? That's called being a real human. Yeah.
and also, where can I find that shmooze, the 23 one? The one?
Okay, so don't go on the internet. If you do, go to shmooze.com. Don't get a dumb phone. That dumb phone that starts with the I. The I that stands for what? Idiot phone, right? Don't get one of those. If you do, get the Shmooze app on Android or on the iPhone, and it's Shmooze 23.
I'll give it to you.
Yeah.
It's a good thing for exercise.
I'm sorry?
For exercise, it's great.
Oh, okay, good. Ladies, any questions, thoughts, observations? Yes. Well, yeah, go ahead. Say it again, please. I'm sorry. Life after life is
eternal. Is it eternal?
Yes, eternal. Yes. It's, in other words, physical entities have an end. I am not physical. I'm spiritual. I'm the one inside. My body is put in the ground, and it ends. I live on forever. I'm not limited by physical limitations because I'm not physical. I'm spiritual. By the way, that's one of the deepest thoughts. You ever have this? You know, it was so strange. It was Shabbos, and I had this spiritual experience. Here I am, this physical being, having this spiritual experience. There's nothing further from the truth. I am not a physical being every once in a while having a spiritual experience. I am a spiritual entity temporarily having a physical experience. I was put into this body for a few short years, but I, the one inside, am completely, utterly spiritual. I'm not physical. I'm the one who thinks, I'm the one who remembers, I'm the one who feels, but I am not the arms, I'm not the legs, I'm not the chest, I'm the guy inside. You know what I mean by that? And that part isn't governed nor limited by physical rules, and therefore lives on forever. Yes, it was a question? Yeah.
If the end is all Haba, then what's Mashiach?
Okay, that's a fine question. And the Rambam defines Mashiach as the world exactly as we live in now, meaning you'll go to work, you put a seed in the ground. There's one distinction. Malei Arts De Hashem. Every human being sees Hashem right here. Every human being gets it. Every human being understands. Physically, everything is the same. But that one reality, recognizing that Hashem runs the world, recognizing that Hashem is here, changes every decision, changes every priority, changes everyone's life. So it's the physical world as we are now, but a totally different reality. So, but again, that's all within the existing physical world. When I'm done my job, my body's put in the ground, I separate, there's no physicality. That's Olam HaNeshamas. Yes?
If I am what I am,
Yeah.
what I accomplish, what happened to me when there's a Gilgul Neshamot and I come down again? Where am I?
Okay. So this one is above my pay scale. That's an accurate answer. So it's a Sephardi shul here, so you believe it's a machlokas amongst the Achronim about Gilgulim, how many people are or not, etc. I know this in the Sephardi world, it's very mukubal. I don't know, but if we've been here before, then you know why you've been here. It's that area of weakness. It's that you ever notice that you have one area that's like your weakness. If you've been here before, that's why you're put back to work on that area, and to improve, to grow in that. If you have 2 areas or 3, or some people have 4 or 5, 10. How many? I don't know. All right, folks. Thank you very much. Chazaq.